Welcome to Bloody Besties, your true crime podcast with best friends who have known each other since elementary school. We are your hosts, forensic scientist Ruby Wild, presenting little known cases to
me, Melissa May, the daughter of police officers and true crime addict, who will be the one to bring you fun facts about our episode. So sit back, relax. Just kidding. Stay sharp, buckle up. We hope you enjoy the ride.
The fun topic you gave me was Rolex. The topic for today is Rolex. Yes. So, Ruby, do you know what movies have Rolex watches regularly appeared in? And this is going to be a shorter one than Circus. Oh my God, you got it. Yes, Ruby. Yes. So Rolex watches have regularly appeared in James Bond films. Some examples are now most of us aren't going to know these models because we don't own a Rolex. I don't have any desire to own one. Not my thing. But the models that have been in the movies is the Rolex Submarine, the Rolex GT Master, and the Rolex Daytona. Oh my God, summer. Caught a man? Wow. In the sea. Yeah. No. Yeah. Yes, we do. I looked into oyster when I was doing my fun fact.
you?
No. I know that it went down the deepest gap. Is it the Marianas Trench? The Rolex went down there. So this is going to be fact number 2, but it was too long. It made it all the way down to the bottom and it still functioned.
Really?
I don't think it was the oyster, but yeah, there's lots of oysters models. Oh. Hmm. Hmm. You said Jane Doe. You said Jane. Pendulum? Keeps it going. Interesting.
You
So the motion of the ocean wouldn't be keeping it going?
Up.
Still.
not that bad.
Oh, yeah. No, it might just be more of like a, sorry if you can't see that movement. Maybe like a kite.
Mm.
Hmm. Oh, yes.
Like-
Because he works with the law. Donald Davis. No. No. I know the name, but I can't place anything. Probably not. Is that the movie you were meaning to say instead of
Yeah.
The Talented Mr. Ripley? That was very quick. Be there That's also not our thing. Children. Yeah. And uh, yeah. Yeah, a certain age, they might be able to decide on their own. I couldn't imagine being like, I want to live with dad. Like, that would break my heart. Yeah. Yeah. What? He's gonna kidnap him? Yeah. Number top 5. Ooh. Oh, they're Targaryens. Allegedly. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was like, what? The daughter's going to take her identity. Wow. Yeah. Okay.
And insecurity.
Whoa. Wow. So just spreading their money everywhere. That's like Alex Murdaugh did with his. I don't have to say allegedly, right? Because he was, even though he's trying to, appeal his case, but he was doing that with his people. I love it. But that's the whole time I was thinking, like, that sounds like someone I know that's current.
And
If you
it's,
haven't seen it, then the views and thoughts expressed in this podcast are ours alone and do not represent the thoughts or opinions of anyone else. The information presented is for general information purposes only. We are not liable for anything you do with this information.